Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and over the years, iPhone has grown into something that was fairly basic at the beginning and is now essential to many of us. And so I wanted to go over all of the top features all throughout the entire life of iPhone or iPhone OS all the way to iOS 13, and soon we'll have iOS 14. And so the first thing is the App Store. That doesn't sound like a big deal these days, but it's a pretty big deal. And so here is an iPhone 4S, and you can see it has the App Store on it. And originally, the iPhone did not have an App Store with the first version. So the first major feature that changed everything was the App Store. And so with that, we had an App Store, additional apps like Minecraft that you can see there, eventually an additional YouTube app that wasn't there by default, Google Maps, and many other things as well. And then iPhone OS 3 brought us Spotlight Search and Cut, Copy, Paste and the video camera. And now that doesn't sound like a big deal today because it's standard on everything. We had this switch here. We could switch to a video camera on some of the original iPhones. And so it allowed us to record video, and we could not only record video, but we could cut, copy, and paste. And then also we had Spotlight Search, so we could search things like Minecraft. And so if we wanted to search throughout the OS, maybe we didn't know where the app was, we could search for it and we could enter into it that way. Now with iOS 4, we gained FaceTime, and for some countries, they still don't have FaceTime. So depending on the government there, they may or may not have that feature, but FaceTime came out with iOS 4, and we have the ability to talk to people if we have a forward-facing camera, and it makes things really nice, especially when you're not able to go out. We also gained multitasking. Now, it's not quite the way it is today. You would double tap the home button and you've got multitasking here, and then you could quickly switch between the app. Now, today we can just swipe and kind of do the same thing, but we didn't have that ability back then, and so that was a big change. If we wanted to close an app, we press and hold, and close it that way. That's how we did things back with iOS 4. Now with iOS 5, we gained Notification Center, and Android had this for quite some time before, but then they brought it to iOS 5, and we would have our notifications here just by pulling down from the top. All of these features were pretty major at the time, but the largest feature that still carries today, I would say, is iMessage. iMessage allowed for people to send messages or text messages, photos, videos, all sorts of things without having to use SMS or MMS, sending it end-to-end encrypted from iPhone to iPhone or iPhone to Mac and later iPhone to iPad. And so this was a phenomenal way to use your phone, sending it using your data, having it secure and encrypted. And if you wanted to add a photo, you could do that. Just tap on the phone here, focus, take a photo, hit use, and send it to whoever had an iPhone. Of course, you could text through here, and you still can to this day. And I think this is probably one of the number one features that has kept a lot of people on iPhone. So it was a pretty major feature. iOS 5 also introduced iCloud to back up things, also wireless updates. You no longer had to use iTunes. Prior to this version, you had to use iTunes. From iOS 5 on, you could actually check for an update through the update software in the settings. So you'll see this is on iOS 6, actually. I don't want to update to iOS 8. With iOS 5, we also have one feature that's been huge all the way to today and sort of inspired everyone else to do the same thing, and that's Siri. So if you press and hold the home button, what's the weather today? It takes a moment, and hopefully it still works. And there you go. There's the temperature, conditions, and everything else. And at the time, this was pretty revolutionary. Now, Siri has sort of fallen behind, it seems, over the time, but it's still doing well, and it's still around today with enhanced voice and everything else. And then with iOS 6, before we had the revamp with iOS 7, we also had a start of focus on privacy. So we now had privacy settings in our settings here. So it allowed us to control things like location services and Bluetooth sharing and just privacy in general with different applications to keep things more private and not allow different applications just to use whatever they want. And that was sort of the start of Apple's focus on privacy on phones. Now, along with that, they brought their own version of Maps. So if we go into Maps, now this is the original version of Apple Maps. It wasn't that great at the time, and you can see that you could report a problem, drop a pin, show traffic, and this was pretty big for Apple to do their own maps. It took them years to get where they are now until it's fully usable for most people. Some people still had bad memories of this and don't like it, but you could do directions and things like that. But then, with iOS 7 came a very big visual and design overhaul change. Now, this is not iOS 7, this is iOS 9, but it's pretty similar as far as that goes. With iOS 7, not only did we get a visual overhaul, but we got a redoing of pretty much how every single thing works within iOS and how it looks. So that means everything from music to the way settings worked, and the way everything looked. It got a flat design. It was no longer skeuomorphic. And we gained a couple features that I use every single day today. The first one being AirDrop. And AirDrop is something when I want to send a wallpaper from one device to another, it's on this device. And so you could AirDrop it to whoever you'd like, and you'd have that ability, which is really nice and something that we take for granted today. We also gained CarPlay. So if you had a device that supported CarPlay back then, maybe you upgraded your stereo in your car, you could use the Lightning port with CarPlay. Now, as we get later and later in the updates, we see less and less updates. So, for example, with iOS 8, we gained handoff and continuity, which was really nice. We can hand off, and I showed that in a recent video. Maybe you were in Safari on your iPhone and you wanted to resume where you left off on your iPhone, but on your Mac, you could do that. So we had that ability. We had a redone makeover for the multitasking with iOS 7 and then continuing in 8, but it changed over time. We also gained iCloud photo library, which was pretty big. So that allowed us to back up our entire photo library to Apple's cloud. It was much better than Mobile Me or previous versions of iCloud. And so we gained that, and it's synced across all your devices pretty seamlessly, although it did have some issues. Now, iOS 9 gave us a few different things. So for example, iOS 9 is on this device, and we've got a control center that looks pretty simple or closer to what we have today. And if you had a 3D touch device, you could actually get quick actions as well as peek and pop. So this device, for example, doesn't allow that because this doesn't have a 3D touch layer. However, if you had a 3D touch device, you had the ability to peek and pop, and we've kind of lost that today with the latest versions. So we can go into settings and get similar things, but it's not the same as we had before, although it's still pretty good today with haptic touch. Now with iOS 10, we're getting closer to what we have here with iOS 13. iOS 10 gave us more small features, not really anything major, but minor updates to things like iMessage, Siri, Photos, 3D touch, and more customization. So we got more and more of that. Now with iOS 11, we gained the Files app, and it didn't really turn into what we have today until later on. And then we got drag and drop. So we could drag and drop different things. Maybe you want to move different applications around. We can tap multiple ones or just let go and they'll go back. You also had the ability to drag and drop files between different applications. But with iOS 12, we gained performance, and that was a big thing with iOS 12. We also gained screen time, shortcuts, a new fully redone Photos app, as well as a complete Apple Maps rebuild. So you'll see that we gained a couple features like screen time and shortcuts, which was just a redo of an app. But we gained shortcuts, and it was an app at the time, but then later it became pre-installed with iOS 13. And the major thing with iOS 13, well, there were only two that were huge, and one is dark mode, of course. And let me turn that back on. There we go. One was dark mode. The other was the quick path keyboard. So if you want to type quickly and say, hello, how are you today? This is built into the OS with iOS 13, as well as a completely revamped Reminders app. And there's all sorts of little additions that have been made throughout the years, different changes to everything from home to music revamping to notes being updated to the camera app being updated and weather and on and on and on. And there are hundreds, if not thousands of tweaks from the original. With iOS 14, based off all the changes I've just gone over, when I looked back through what was major with each revision, I don't expect any major features this year. Unless Apple surprises us and does a redesign, I expect a few minor updates, things like stability, continued performance and battery improvements, maybe a couple more app tweaks, and that's about it, as well as additions to augmented reality. So at this point, we're getting a very mature operating system. It does what most people want, and it does it well. And there are a few bugs, of course, with iOS 13 that they can improve upon, but in general, this has been fairly solid, and it's been amazing to see all of the updates, going back over all of them over the years. But with iOS 14, don't expect anything huge, but expect stability and a solid operating system. But I'd love to hear what you want to see most on Monday with iOS 14, or if you're watching this past iOS 14's debut with WWDC, let me know what your favorite feature of all time is in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description as I always do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.